ARPA Institute was established in 1992, and we've been working in Armenia since 1992 for 31 years already. And the main objective of ARPA is to advance science, technology, healthcare, and many other areas to provide expert guidance and advice, and also to work with the institutes of the Academy of Sciences, the universities, and the government to establish programs, research programs, scientific programs, educational programs, healthcare programs. And we actually have a few ongoing already. We have our annual invention competition for young scientists in Armenia. And any young scientist 35 years and below can participate and present any invention in any area. Then we send these inventions to experts. They evaluate, at least each invention should be evaluated by 3 experts. And then we determine the winner, and we award the winner $5,000. And the second winner gets $1,000 as a token of appreciation.
Could you mute yourselves, please? Please.
Yes. So we also have established the first Class 1000 clean room in the Alikhanyan National Lab for advanced research in material science and other areas where purity of the environment is a necessity. We also work with the universities, as I said, and also other institutes like the Molecular Biology Institute, where we provide important instrumentation like a sequencer, and also other instrumentation to other institutes and also the universities. And also, of course, we provide expert guidance because the members of the ARPA Institute are all experts in various fields. And the only thing that we have as a program in Los Angeles is organizing such panel discussions and also presentations on various topics related to Armenia or Armenians. And our panels and the presentations are normally held on Saturdays at 11 o'clock. And we'll invite you, of course, if we have your email address, you will receive the emails and the announcements, and you'll be welcome to join. And just to mention our next presentation, and the panel, actually it's a panel discussion. It will be on the genetic history of the Armenian highland, a bridge to Europe. This is related to the recent research that the European and American scientists carried out, and the results seem to direct everybody that there was major immigrations from the Armenian highlands to the European countries and the West. And so this seems very important, and we are inviting experts to discuss and present this topic. Today, we are delighted to have an esteemed panelists of experts in scenario planning and strategic planning. And it will be moderated by Dr. Hriar Cabayan. Hriar is a visiting scientist at the Lawrence Livermore Lab, and he has worked with the Pentagon's Joint Staff managing programs to support operational planning and many other areas. So his biography is already in the announcement, and so I'm not going through all the details, but he's an expert in scenario analysis and strategic planning, and he will govern and moderate today's session. Hriar, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Hagop. Much appreciated. Appreciate all the work your team has done and setting up the session. And I want to, good morning, good evening to everybody who's online, wherever you reside. I will not go through the bios. We'll spend too much time. I don't want to take too much time doing the introduction anyway. So please, if you haven't, you can, while I'm talking, you can read the bios of the folks who are participating. Great number of folks. I need to give you, though, a little bit of background. It took over a year to get here. Maybe Yervan can correct me, probably more like a year and a half. It started off with he and I talking about, gee, it would be good to give a course on strategic planning. And my work colleague of many years, Allison, Astorino-Courtois, she worked with me when I was in joint staff for many years. So I reached out to her and she kindly agreed to provide that course. So we gave that course, but it is not enough to do just strategic planning and put words to paper and say this and that. You got to do simulation with people who are subject matter experts, and Allison will go into that. So it took us several months to set up the simulation session. We had 13 experts, great experts from throughout the world, from Armenia, the US, and Europe, who participated and represented 7 countries in the region. And Allison will mention those. And so what we did is we recorded all of that, and Arpine will give you all the details about that. By the way, it was 2 days, 4 hours each day. Oh, back and forth. It was a huge amount of great information. It was all recorded, like I said. So after that, I reached out to the Smiths and I said, hey, we ought to capture this. It's great to capture it on video, but why don't we capture it on paper as scholarly papers? And we had 5 papers that were submitted. And out of the people who submitted it, you will see several who are participated in the panel discussion today. So I will do this. I will ask. I'm going to shut up here in a couple of minutes, and ask. Have each of the panelists. I'll ask him a question to address, and then we'll go through all the panelists, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So if you want to do Q&A, please write your question, brief question. Don't make them huge paragraphs. It's going to be, we don't have time to, but brief questions, important questions you want addressed by any of the panelists, put that in the Q&A box, please. And I'll read them and have and address and ask the appropriate panelists to respond. So we'll go through as many of those as possible. So let me start off with Allison. So Allison is, you have her bio, and like I said, she did a lot of this type of work for the Joint Staff and the Pentagon, and she still does. So Allison, my question to you is, if you could highlight to the audience today the importance of national security, strategic planning for supporting national security, how that is important, how it should be done, the interest resolve capability framework that you have developed, and then within the 10 minutes also, why is simulation so very important once you do the planning? So go ahead, Allison, over to you.
Okay, hi everybody, and thank you so much for allowing me to participate, especially to the ARPA, Institute. It's a real honor and a privilege. So because I have 10 minutes to speak about all of this stuff, I apologize in advance because I think I may leave some important facets out. But let me go over probably 4 points that hopefully Hriar will answer the mail here. So strategic planning, right? Obviously, and I think it's probably obvious to everybody on the line here, it's critical to understand how to manage your own interests in a highly complex environment, in any highly complex environment that involves multiple actors pursuing their own interests, multiple kinds of interests, economic, political, for politicians, domestic support, and so on, multiple timescales, short-term opportunities and threats versus long-term opportunities and threats, and all of this happening in a very dynamic way. Strategic planning is really how to go about thinking about all of this as one system and coming up with a plan for maintaining your own objectives or pursuing your own objectives within this complex environment. So it's very much an aspect of the environment and what you do within it. I will say, however, though, 75% at least of the value, in my opinion, of forming a strategic plan. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I have the light. And hopefully that's so thank you for that chat. 75% of the value of strategic planning is not in the plan and the strategy itself. It's not in the document that's produced, but in the insight that planners gain into possible areas of leverage. And this is where it becomes very, very important for Armenia, right? And here's my point number 2. And this is something that we walk through in the course. This is really what the course is about: comparative interest-based assessment of a national security environment with important concepts like national interest, national resolve, how motivated an actor is to pursue a plan, national capabilities, and to put it into one sort of methodology, one kind of frame, one kind of way of thinking about an environment. One of the things that comes out of that is that we see very clearly that even a small or a weak state can have some forms of leverage over events, over the events that impact their national security. Even if it's just playing two different actors off of each other, or exploiting domestic vulnerabilities in another actor in another nation state. But finding these types of leverage requires a wide angle lens when we're thinking about security. Security strategists cannot just look for security leverage or strength in the military realm. It's not just an issue of military, especially for a small state. If this were the case, then Afghanistan or Vietnam would not have been able to hold out against the US, right? There are also, there are other things happening. This is one of the things that the course tries to walk you through. Third point, Armenian national security strategists and decision makers have to balance, if we're taking this wide angle perspective, they have to balance economic development and national security with domestic support at the very least. Economic development and national security, one is not possible without the other. Money is needed to purchase security material. Security is needed to allow for economic development, to encourage investment, and so on and so forth. This is the quandary that Armenia finds itself in, and is one of the things that we walked through. And as you see in the news, it remains the quandary that Armenian leaders find themselves in. It's one of the things that we walk through in the course. Armenia cannot rapidly amass military might, or cannot garner the domestic political support and funds in order to do this without, some time, some effort. It cannot attract investment for economic development without a secure environment. The issue is to balance security risk against development. One way to do this is to buy down short-term risk, for example, by negotiating over Artsakh, perhaps. And again, one of the other things of this course, and I encourage you to look at it, goes through is sort of how to think about all of the trade-offs that that are necessary in a complex environment. Okay. The final thing, there is no silver bullet. You know, we present one in this course, one way of thinking through, you know, the complex, multi-conflict, multi-actor, like I said, multi-dimension environment that Armenia finds itself in. The best understanding of such a complex environment, though, that is riddled with uncertainty, sometimes sparse information, cannot come from a single approach. And that's, if I leave you with anything, that's what I want to leave you with. We present one way of thinking through systematically how to develop a strategic complex with the comparative interest analysis, resolve and relevant capability that you'll see in the course. But we also added on a simulation. There are maps for visual aids all brought together here. Why? To triangulate information. No single methodology, no single discipline of thinking through, of critical thinking can give you the insight that you need, the depth of knowledge that you need in order to understand and develop a strategic plan to deal with such a complex environment. So for that reason, again, you'll see, you'll have to listen to me talking and see me, you know, see my mug on the face, you know, on the screen, to go through a manner of thinking about Armenia's strategic planning issues. Then you get the privilege of listening to some real experts on Armenia, you know, speaking through, battling through some of the insights, the hypotheses developed during the first part of the course. And as I said again, they're visual aids. Other forms of spatial analysis can help. Quantitative data analysis, if you want to add that on, you know, can help. The whole point is you have to come at such a complex environment from many different perspectives, using many different analytic approaches. And that's what we try to present in the course, and with the very important wrap-up simulation. And simulation is a human simulation, not a computation. I think that's probably my 10 minutes. Hriar, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you have, Allison, as you normally do. You've done very well. Thank you. So now we walk over to Arpine, and by the way, Arpine, I hope you don't mind me saying you walk on water. If those of you were involved in pulling all of this together, I'll tell you, Arpine and the team at the AVC did a phenomenal job, as good as I was used to in the Pentagon. So the recording, scheduling, on and on, deconflicting, and all of that. So I'm going to hand this over to Arpine right now to walk you through. By the way, everything Allison said has been recorded. You can have it. The simulation is recorded, and Arpine is going to walk you through all of that. Arpine, over to you, please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I would like to take a moment to extend a warm welcome and express my gratitude to ARPA Institute and its president, Dr. Akopyan, for organizing this panel discussion. I want to extend a warm welcome to all the participants joining us today. I'm truly honored to be a part of such an esteemed group of individuals, each of us bringing unique perspectives and expertise to the table. As you know, the AGBU Armenian Virtual College is a unique educational institution that specializes in delivering high-quality core Armenian-related subjects through online platform. AVC's expertise lies in its ability to provide interactive educational experiences to e-learners worldwide. By leveraging technology and innovative teaching methods, AVC offers a wide range of courses that cater topics of interest to Armenians around the globe of different age groups and proficiency levels. What served as a foundation or basis for the development of this course? You mentioned about it a little bit, Dr. Cabayan. In the aftermath of the 44-day war, the AGBU Armenian Virtual College identified the need for strategic planning. And following the discussions between Dr. Yerevan Zoryan, AGBU Armenian Virtual College founding president, and Dr. Hriar Cabayan, who has an extensive knowledge and experience in strategic planning, Professor Astorino-Courtois was invited to author and deliver the course. Then the AGBU AVC team developed the course and provided it on its e-learning platform with the intent of disseminating strategic planning practices among decision makers in the homeland and diaspora. Like the other courses offered by AVC, the scenario-based planning course is carefully structured to provide a balanced blend of theoretical knowledge and practical application. AVC utilized a variety of interactive tools, multimedia resources, and collaborative platforms to enhance the learning experience. Let's take a closer look at the course platform and the resources AGBU Armenian Virtual College offers. I will share my screen now, and we go to the course platform. You can see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. This is the course platform, and the scenario-based strategic planning course aims to equip you with the necessary foundational concepts and tools to effectively address challenges in today's security world. In addition to introducing the foundational concepts and tools, the course includes a practical component that demonstrates the application of those tools. This is done through a pre-recorded simulation exercise. The course is available to all individuals or groups interested in understanding national security concepts, their application, and their impact on Armenia. In this course, you will achieve several learning outcomes that will enhance your understanding and skills in the field. By achieving these learning outcomes and leveraging the knowledge shared by the authors and our contributors, you will be well equipped to analyze complex situations, make informed decisions, and develop effective plans and recommendations within the context of the IRC framework. The authors of this course, Dr. Allison, Astorino-Courtois, and Dr. Hriar Cabayan, brought their expertise in the subject matter to provide you with valuable insights and guidance. The contributors, including Alex Sarkisian, Aris Mardirosyan, Dr. Gerard Dibarityan, Talar Kazantian, Dr. Yerevan Zoryan, have also contributed their expertise to enrich your learning experience. Let's now review the outline of the course. The course consists of 2 interactive video lessons. Lesson 1 is the introduction to critical thinking for national security and covers various aspects of national security and comparative interest analysis. Let's watch a brief segment from one of our video lessons.
The past 25 years has been a period of enormous and rapid political change worldwide. In the South and Central Caucasus, a region still adjusting to post-Soviet geopolitical alignments, is no exception. It's a highly complex environment in which leaders must balance the need to defend against generations-old enemies at the same time that they have political and economic interests that require outreach and regional cooperation.
As you can see, we have also tips and many other quizzes that pop up during the video lessons, enhancing the learning experience of our students.
What's the best way to protect national interests tailored to such a complex and multifaceted international environment?
And we have also the captions in Armenian. In addition to the lesson content, you will have access to various resources and a quiz to enhance your learning experience. Now, let's move forward to lesson 2. Lesson 2 explores various aspects of strategic planning, stakeholder analysis, and applying these concepts to a real-world test case, the Syrian civil war. Lesson 2 consists of 9 parts and have additional resources for learning enhancing. Lesson 3 is the simulation game. The course was followed by a 2-day simulation exercise conducted with a group of renowned subject matter experts. The primary objectives of the simulation exercise were to assess future pathways, produce a final report with outcomes and academic analysis from the scenarios, and create an e-learning resources for stakeholders in academia, government, and the private sector. Let's see a few minutes about from our video recording. This is scenario planning simulation day 1. On the first day of the exercise, each stakeholder had an opportunity to present and discuss the interests of the country they represented. This allowed them to articulate their objectives, concerns, and priorities within the context of the simulation. By presenting their interests, stakeholders could contribute to the overall understanding of the scenario and help shape the subsequent discussions and decision-making process. On the second day, the matrices presenting each country's best and worst outcomes were presented. Then the subject matter experts analyzed the data and engaged in debates regarding the potential implications and strategies to address the various scenarios. Overall, the second day's discussions were centered around understanding the best and worst outcomes depicted in the matrices, identifying trends, formulating policy recommendations, fostering collaboration, and planning for the future. And based on the outcome of the simulation exercise and the analysis conducted by subject matter experts, a final report was generated. You have this report in the panel discussion announcement text also, and which is accessible also on course platform. This report is the integral part of the course and summarizes the findings, strategic options, and recommendations for future pathways for Armenia. It serves as a valuable resource for decision makers and planners, providing insights into potential challenges and opportunities for national security planning. I would like to mention that throughout the course, our students will have access to additional resources, including these geo-economic maps related to the Caucasus region. These maps were created by Alex Tursarkisyan, one of our contributors, and provide valuable insights into the demographic, land use, and economic dynamics of the Caucasus region, specifically focusing on Artsakh and Armenia. By utilizing these resources and engaging in the simulation game, you will gain practical skills, enhance your analytical abilities, and develop strategic thinking in complex scenarios. Lesson 4. I will go to this is our course platform. And lesson 4 is the final project cohort planning and recommendations. Here we are. In lesson 4 of the course, the focus is on the final project, which centers on cohort planning and recommendations. I would like to mention that during our winter term, we conducted a pilot cohort comprising 25 CEOs from the IT industry who had the opportunity to participate as observers in a 2-day simulation exercise. We encourage you to enroll in the course to get the full understanding about scenario-based and strategic planning and see the simulation exercise of 13 renowned subject matter experts in full. Dr. Zoryan is with us on Zoom. I think he can add more if I missed something. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Arpine. Before we go on with the session, I would like to ask, and Yervan was critical to make all of this happen. So Dr. Yervan Zoryan, and he's online. Yervan, do you mind taking a couple of minutes and let everybody know about your perception about how much interest there is within the Armenian government for these products and all this work that has been done? So over to you, Yervan.
Yeah, and thank you, Hriar. Of course, we did this course in order to leverage it, in order to learn from it, in order to benefit from it. And as Arpine mentioned, the first cohort that joined us were the technology community, advanced thinkers, I assume. So we were able to serve the technology community as a first group. So we feel the need for benefiting from this as groups as well. Actually, Allison from that community is with us today on the call. I see him. What we think we should do, we should also have the government decision makers be part of this. We have approached the government in Armenia, the government in Artsakh as well as different groups of communities, cohorts, if you want, in the financial domain, in the health domain, in diaspora. And we do have now a lineup of a group from the Armenian government, deputy minister level team of 15 individuals who will start as a second cohort very soon, in early June. We have also another group, a diaspora group from AGBU, who also would like to have a separate cohort to again go through the course, through the theory part, through the simulation, and then have their own lesson 4, as you mentioned, as you saw. Lesson 4 is the debate inclusively and come up with action plan given what we see. Now, we'll be expanding this and we would like to see more participants. Maybe I can take advantage of the meeting with the ARPA team today to ask Hagop and his team if ARPA would like to come as a group again, as a cohort to benefit from it. That's a possibility. The other possibility, of course, is to participate individually. As Arpine was showing earlier, we do have an offering that will start on July 10 for individuals who would like to also learn scenario planning, strategic planning via scenarios. And this is very useful even for your personal life. We will see it here applied for a bigger concept for national security, as Allison was mentioning earlier. However, one can learn from scenario planning in many other places, as Hriar would mention. We do it in our sector in technology, for instance. But today's concentration is strategic planning for security, for national security, which is very critical today more than any other time. That's why the panel today is dedicated to that. And I'll go back to Hriar to take us back to our national security and talk about the situation today. And later, of course, you can benefit from the course. Arpine, you may want to bring back the QR code that you showed at the end so that we can capture it with our cameras. And if we want, we can use that QR code to enroll later on. Thanks, Hriar, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Yervan. Yep. Please take a picture of this. And I really encourage you, it sounds like long. That debate, I have to admit, and Allison is with me here, I learned a huge amount. I mean, during my years in the Pentagon and Joint Staff, I wasn't asked to do South Caucasus. We had too many other crises in Afghanistan, Iraq, on and on and on. I learned a lot. I mean, we had a back and forth, back and forth. You will not get bored, let me tell you. It's just, the quality of the participants was tremendous, and they're from all over. It's not like one community living in Yerevan. It was Yerevan, France, US, UK, on and on. So I encourage you to do that. And if you have any trouble getting through, please get through to Arpine. She's absolutely efficient. Within minutes, you'll get a reply telling you how to how to get things done. Okay, so I think we're to the point where we're going to now move on to the report, the white paper that came about after the simulation was over. And like I said, we have 5 great articles. It's all posted. Please read it. If you don't have a lot of time to read, you can listen to it while exercising. And also, if that's not possible, I have put together brief executive summaries for each of the articles. You can read that, but I really encourage you to go through. This is not newspaper reporting. These are serious scholars who spend years and years and years studying the region, and they're telling you what they think the problems are and what the way ahead is. So please do. It will enhance your understanding of the region, and it will enhance your if you want to get involved, it will tell you where are the critical region areas to get involved. Okay, with that, I want to now move on. We had 5 great articles, like I say, and we have 3 participants today who have contributed articles. I'm going to start with David Akopyan. David, you have years and years of experience in all this, so I don't need to introduce you. Everybody knows you. But in the article you have, which is the first article in the white paper, you go through and explain the challenges Armenia faced, and you do a great job, David. As Armenia journeyed from a Soviet republic to an independent state over the last 30 years, you go through that, and then you also you also explain the significant strides Armenia has made, considering all these challenges over the last 30 years. And then if time is left, I want to also bring some other key points you make. But let's start with these 2 points, David. Over to you. Thank you.
So thank you, Hriar. Thank you all the organizers, and presenters, participants. I think it's a great opportunity to speak about some ideas I came also with. And importantly for myself, I was the Turkey subject matter expert, but I felt obliged to write a bit broader, not just Turkey part, but a bit reflecting Armenia, the past, where we come from, where we are going, and all the complex tectonic movements around Armenia in the world also are happening. Because one of the things for me is Allison is very right talking about the complex systems and the way we deal with complex systems. But importantly also, this is a turbulence within the complex systems, because complex systems sometimes could be too many moving parts, but here we have the turbulence, and this is a global turbulence, and also turbulence in Russia, turbulence in Turkey, turbulence in Iran, and turbulence in Armenia and Azerbaijan, and many other things. So this is a very dynamic and complex situation. Where we come from, Armenia, and just since I'm Armenian, I grew up in Armenia, and I spent the last 10 years of the Soviet Union as a researcher in laser physics and complex systems. And I know firsthand myself how much it was invested in technology, in science, in education, especially the last 10 years of the Soviet Union. And some were saying that time close to the collapse, it was like 80s, Armenia was seen by many as a Silicon Valley of the Soviet Union. And now, probably 20, 30 years after, we're collecting some dividends, also, although with some delay, of the investment made those years in the quality of human resources in Armenia. And this is important to note. We also need to note that probably the collapse of the Soviet Union was the most dramatic and the most impactful and painful for Armenia, because in addition to collapse of the centrally planned economy, we have the war, we have the earthquake, it somehow coincided a year before, and we had the blockade, we had influx of refugees. So many crises together, and Armenia, like GDP, probably dropped the highest among the rest of the Soviet countries. And then there was a slow and painful process of recovery from 94 onwards. One important and interesting, let's say, observation about Armenia and the way we came out from the Soviet Union, different to most of the other Soviet Union countries. I mean, the power did not move to the party autocrats, apparatchiks, like it happened in most of the other republics. It was a genuine democratic process which brought the new wave of leadership in Armenia. And I think on this one, it is important, and I want to note, I spoke about the education, science, technology, which is the innovative nature of Armenians, but the second part is the freedom-loving nature of Armenians, and these two things are correlated, and I will reflect it later also about the same, how it is helping us to overcome the challenges of today's reality. So then, long process, but a couple of points, maybe in 98, we had the turn, and unfortunate turn, when some junior party apparatchiks managed to get the power, and then for some years, it was like an effort to build under the Russian domination, a sort of mini Russian like autocratic regime, which although Armenia, the freedom-loving and democracy instincts were not fully absorbed by that pressure, and there was a constant like movement around from society to which did not limit that, let's say, control to go the way it went in Russia, in Kazakhstan, in Belarus, and a few other places also. Even compared to Ukraine and Georgia, I think we managed to maintain some self-democracy in Armenia. And in 2013, Armenia was very ready to move to Europe. And there was a partnership agreement almost to be signed. And the last night before this, Armenia, the president of Armenia was called to Moscow, and I think he was forced, I mean, to sign, not to sign this, but to sign a different agreement with Eurasian Economic Union, and Armenia was forced back to the union, which we were not part of. But I just want to make the point, I mean, interesting, Akop was also mentioning about genetic connections of Armenians and Europeans, but from the very early years of collapse of Soviet Union, I personally remember this gravity towards the European values, democracy, innovation, like freedom, etc., were the type of driving force and sort of promised land, which unfortunately we also, similar to the Moses people, had to spend 30 or 40 years to get there, and we're gradually getting there with some delays now. So later, 2018 revolution, peaceful revolution, velvet revolution. Economists named Armenia as a country of the year because how peaceful and how beautiful the changes happened. And then suddenly the abrupt war, which not many were expecting, and I mean some people were expecting, but the society at large was not this expecting. And worse, no one was expecting the outcome of the war. People until the last moment were thinking that we are winning, and then there was like mass perception that we are going into the right direction, one more effort, and suddenly it happened that we are not winning and we lost the war. So this waking up, it is sort of, to me, the April 1914 in Germany. People were still believing that some magic solution will be found, and the next day they wake up and then discover, no, there is no magic solution and the war is lost. The other painful issue is with Armenia, that 2.5 years after this, we still have not recovered, and the war has not ended. So it is not you end the war, you sign an agreement, and you agree on the terms, what you give, what you take, and how you close the deal, but it is a constant process. And the challenge here is that we have many other turbulences around us. Like when Azerbaijan understands and sees the moment and the opportunity, that when the Russians started the war in Ukraine, they understood this is the moment they can take a bit more. And now it comes more and more to our side that this is now the Artsakh is need to be compromised. There is a strong pressure on this. They claim the Western Azerbaijan or the Sunni Armenian province and more. So to me, it is the critical that we need to understand the criticality of the moment, and then that no one is going to save us, no one is going to help us. It is us first to get organized. One of the important for me points I put in the paper in more details for me is our sober, fact-based, pragmatic assessment. What happened during the war, which so far did not happen, and this is very different to what Israelis did after the Yom Kippur War, where in 6 months everything has been analyzed, every single smallest battle, commanders, actors, everyone, right or wrong things, they understood and moved forward. Unfortunately, and I spent some months in Artsakh, and I know realities on the ground, like why Martuni city was defended, why Hadrut was given up, why Shushi was taken so easily, why we usually blame the drones or military technology might of Azerbaijan, but there are many other factors because the same military might was present across all the villages in Mardakert region, in Martuni region, but it didn't work there. It worked in 1 or 2 places. And then they broke the line, and then they managed to take a bigger part. So these things, I think, is the first and the important thing for us as Armenians to make a solid assessment, to draw some conclusions, and then after, based on this, to design our strategies, how we move forward. I probably will stop here. I'm happy to take any question because people has much more, but for now, I think it's enough. And then later, probably following the next question, I will take it to the future.
Well, David, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I want to introduce Anna next, but before I do, Anna, I have take a minute here. I met Anna first time, Zoom, virtually, where we were doing the simulation. So she popped up on the screen and she was representing Iran. So I couldn't help but say, hey, Anna, so wonderful to see a woman representing Iran. She went like this, she said, and without head cover. And I remember that moment, it was very funny. So Anna, over to you. You make in your article, which again, I hope everybody reads it. It's very profound about Iran and Iran's, very complicated, approach to the Caucasus, a relationship with Azerbaijan that goes back years and years and years. So Anna makes a great job going through all of that. So Anna, you make a profound statement in your article, which again, I hope everybody reads. The 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war set off alarm bells in Tehran. And you go on that and you explain that very profoundly in your article. And then you also go through the intricate relationship between the main players with Iran, of course, one of the players in the region. So Anna, over to you to give us some profound understanding of that, of Iran in that region. Over to you, Anna. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you for remembering me representing Iran without scarf. But I wanted, first of all, to mention that as a subject matter expert, I wasn't alone. My colleague from American University, Alan Shaduns, was with me, and it was my privilege and pleasure to work with a professional like him. And we contributed also with an article you mentioned, Hriar. We are both co-authors, and I'm really sorry he couldn't join today. So referring to your question, the developments in the South Caucasus during and after the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War were and are closely tied to the security interests of all countries in the region. And more so, this is true about Iran. The military actions across its borders, the use of Turkey-backed mercenaries, Turkey's involvement in the region, and Azerbaijan's expansionist rhetoric, not only towards Armenia, but after the war also towards Iran, are issues of big concern from Iranian perspective. This has led Iran to try playing a bigger role in the further developments in the region. And so this role is primarily anchored on the political statements only, still, but there are already vivid results in the political and public attitudes towards Iran in Armenian society. For example, a recent survey conducted by International Republican Institute shows that 54% of respondents mentioned Iran as the most important security partner for Armenia. And as I guess, it's the first time Iran is on the top of this survey. By the way, the second country is France, and the third only is Russia. This situation makes it important to really fully understand and analyze the security interests of Iran in the region in order to manage the expectations, and also, from the other hand, not to exaggerate the possible results and threats coming with the current state of relations between Armenia and Iran. And so in the article, we tried to somehow summarize the overall geostrategic and security interests of Iran in the region, and focusing mainly on Iran-Armenia relations. In order to understand why the alarming bells were so vivid and so important during and after the Nagorno-Karabakh war, it's important to understand the national security interests of Iran in the South Caucasus. And so those interests have always been and still encompass important goals of maintaining its territorial integrity and upholding the principle of territorial integrity in general, ensuring that borders remain unchanged and preventing or stopping any irredentist processes. In addition, Iran seeks to limit the presence of extra-regional powers such as the United States, Israel, and NATO in the region, while also acknowledging Russia's role as a balancer against Western and Turkish influence. And also lasting peace and stability in the region coincide with Iran's security aspirations in this area, and it aims to limit the presence of mercenaries and other non-state militant actors in the South Caucasus for that goal. And so taking this into consideration, it's obvious that all the developments during the war were very important security threats for Iran also, not only for Armenia. And so these threats were the main ground why and how we received political responses from Iran. And coming to those responses, Iran's official response regarding the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has stood out traditionally as being neutral, balanced, and level-headed. Iran is the only country which bordered Armenia, Artsakh, and Azerbaijan, and armed clashes in the conflict zone could destabilize the situation near Iran's northern provinces. And during the war, as well as during the 4-day war in April 2016, missiles fell on the territory of Iran. And in addition, an Azerbaijani military helicopter was shot down onto the territory of Iran and causing further concerns for Iran in Azerbaijan's use of Israeli-produced UAVs and using those UAVs in its near its borders. And finally, every escalation in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict creates new opportunity for those interested in the spread of pan-Turkic and anti-Iranian sentiments among the Turkish-speaking population, sometimes declared as Southern Azerbaijanis from the Azerbaijan side, who live in the northern provinces of Iran. For example, a rally was organized by the members of this group in Tabriz during the war, who demanded their government to refrain from helping Armenia and allow them to go fight in Karabakh. And by saying helping Armenia, they meant that the border remained open with Armenia. They demanded the closing of the border. The rally was dispersed and its organizers detained, though. And it's important to mention that the participants of the rally were chanting not only anti-Armenian, but also anti-Iranian slogans. So all these created not only threats, security threats from outside, but also internal security threats. And that's why after the war began, the representatives of the Iranian Foreign Ministry paid several visits to the countries of the region. And first of them was Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who visited Baku, Moscow, Yerevan, and Ankara. And he declared that Iran has a long-term peace plan for the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. Of course, taking into consideration all the developments we had, it was obvious that it couldn't be a plan that could be accepted via any country, not only directly involved in the conflict, but from the other countries in the region. But as we assume, the main objectives of the initiative, this kind of peace initiative, was to make an effort to improve its image within the international community, and especially with the countries of the region. It was vital for Iran to project image not of a provoker of conflict, but rather of an advocate for peaceful solutions. Secondly, Iran was truly interested in establishing a ceasefire between the conflict parties as soon as possible because of all the developments I have already mentioned. The hostilities were especially dangerous for Iran given the presence of mercenaries. And it's very important issue because this issue during the war was mentioned and referred from the France, Russia, and other countries. But after the war, Armenia and Iran remained the only countries who didn't forget about them. And so Iran was the second country mentioning frequently that mercenaries are still in the South Caucasus, that they are a security threat for the countries of the region. And also it should be noted that they were the members of these mercenaries from Iranian perspective, that they were members of the same extremist Islamic groups against which the forces of the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard were fighting in Syria and other countries of the Middle East. In the context of the discussions of the proposed program, the issue of removing mercenaries from the region was certainly an important part of negotiations. And also after the war, this threatening rhetoric from the Azerbaijani side, and also importance of opening so-called Zangezur corridor for Azerbaijan and Turkey became another security threat, not only for Armenia, but also for Iran. And so that's why even after the war, Iran made several political statements saying that the territorial integrity of Armenia is a red line for them, and that the unchangeability of the borders in the region is very important for Iran. And so these political statements are very important for Armenia, but also it's something that Azerbaijani anti-propaganda uses in order to show that Armenia is an ally of Iran and Russia in the region, and having also these moral words with Iran. It tries to show itself in the camp of Western countries, having some problems and issues with Russia, with Iran, and also Armenia being ally of these countries. But in reality, when we analyze economic ties of Azerbaijan with Iran and Russia, we see more and more engagement and more important role of Azerbaijan as being a bridge between Iran and Russia, not only in the sphere of infrastructures, but also in the field of gas and oil economy. And just several days ago, Iran and Russia signed an agreement concerning this construction of railway Rasht-Astara in Iran, which will be an important part of India, Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia connection. And it shows once again how Azerbaijan is involved economically in cooperation with Iran and Russia. But these political statements coming from Iran, which are very important for Armenia, but which are only statements, and I guess the limitations of having even bigger cooperation in the economy sphere and in military sphere, it's something that is red line not only for us, but for our cooperation with Western countries. Is important to show and to stress that Armenia-Iran's relations haven't been and are not against any other country, not any other cooperation between Armenia and any other country. And so, and also when speaking about Iran the West confrontation, the image of Iran and the logic of Iran's foreign policy in that confrontation is a country that was against international order and in different spheres, especially in the Middle East. And now in the South Caucasus, we see Iran, who is for the international order and against the threats against this international order. So for Armenia, I guess it's very important to stress these peculiarities of Armenia-Iran relations when dealing with its Western partners, and also when presenting the quality of our cooperation. And also, if I have still time, I wanted to stress also the presence of EU monitoring mission and Iran's response towards it. As I mentioned, for Iran, it's very important to have tools to limit Turkey's presence in the region, and also to have tools against Azerbaijan's expansionist goals. And so, if 2 years ago it would be unimaginable having Iran being not against EU's monitoring mission in Armenia, today we see this very symbolic reality that we have an opened consulate of Iran in Cabayan, and also we have these monitoring missions. And so we have Iran's flag in Syunik, and also EU's flag being represented by a monitoring mission, because the goals coincide somehow, not in a broader field of the foreign policy, but at least concerning this unacceptability of the changing of the borders and having stability in South Caucasus. Maybe I will stop here and will be happy if you would have questions to answer to them. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for these insightful comments. And I encourage you folks, I know this topic is tough, it's difficult, but all the participants, if you have questions, type them in, otherwise we can go on. So let's move on to Leo right now. Leo, and I encourage you all, by the way, to read these articles by these tremendous contributors. So Leo's article, he does, and you make some very profound statements, Leo, about how the 2020 war made dramatic changes to the existing status in the South Caucasus. And you conclude by stating that the ongoing trends continue. Russian influence in Armenia may come to a point of no return in the near future. So Leo, over to you if you can expand on these and other issues you want to raise. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Rai, for the questions, and I want to thank the ARPA for organizing this event, and I think there was a very interesting work we did all together. And coming back to your questions, I will go a bit back, starting with the status quo existed before 2020 war. If we simplify it, we see that there was Armenia, which was a security provider for Nagorno-Karabakh, and it was successful in that for almost 30 years. And there was Russia, which was deterring Turkey from entering this Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict, and Russia, which was selling some cheap armaments to Armenia and training its officers for free. But at the same time, starting from 2006, 2007, giving more and more military support to Azerbaijan by selling armaments worth of $5 billion. At the end, the status quo, which was very stable, at some point cracked the moment the war started in 2020. And the outcomes of war were controversial to what Russia was expecting, the main player in the region at that moment. And expectations, as I say it now, were that Armenia will be losing the war, but not that hard as it happened. And Armenia would probably proceed with bringing in Russian peacekeepers, but giving back to Azerbaijan only 5 regions around Nagorno-Karabakh, and of course not losing any part of Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous oblasts, which happened with Hadrut and Shushi at the end. But the involvement of Turkey made the story go a bit different from Moscow's view, and the status quo which we got after the 2020 war was very unstable compared to what we had before. And let's say many people in Moscow, most of political class was thinking that they won this situation and that Russian presence in the region will rise even more with peacekeepers in Karabakh. But that lasted only a few months after the war. The moment Azeris started invading Armenian territory with the Sev reached in May 2021, the situation started to collapse because Moscow was not willing and was not able to interfere and to, let's say, answer to its responsibilities, treaty responsibilities, because for Moscow, choosing the side in the conflict is almost, it is losing the equation, because then either Armenia or Azerbaijan will leave from their sphere of influence. So they're keeping this neutrality and in many cases trading the interest of the weaker side, which after war is Armenia, to maintain something like looking like peace. Brought Russia to the point when Azeris are doing what they want on the both on border with Armenia and in Nagorno-Karabakh, violating every paper signed and the so-called November 9th agreement, which was written by Vladimir Putin as he told. Violating it, everybody knows about blocking the Lachin corridor and everything. And this situation moves us to the answer to the second question about the point of no return of Russia's influence in South Caucasus. Because we see that the security vacuum, which formed after 2020, when Russia is not fulfilling its security responsibilities, is pushing other players to replace it. India selling armament to Armenia and more or less taking over the Russian market, which was nobody even tried to conquest before. We see France, we see Iran, we see US and EU on the ground. We see EU on the ground in Armenia, and the Russo-Ukrainian war, which started even made this process to go faster. And if we look at, for example, at peace negotiations process, in beginning it was only Russia mediating it, and I've been personally on some meetings when I worked in Embassy of Sweden in Moscow for it's from 2020 to 2022, in some meetings where OSCE, Swedish OSCE people were talking with high-ranking Russian diplomats, and when they were trying to talk about Karabakh, Russians were just like changing the topic pretty aggressively and not even discussing it with them. This situation changed to the point when every important thing now is being negotiated in EU or in US at the moment. So we see how dramatically things changing. And if, for example, the peace agreement will be signed in Europe and it's under Western mediation, this is the point of non-return probably for Russia, because after that, there won't be need in many of security responsibilities it took, and it's not even fulfilling. And in, I think, pretty short time, Russia may leave the region at least militarily, and the role will be much lower in general. So I can say that we can say that it's very good for Armenia because I mean this feeling of the vacuum has its price, and at the moment, unfortunately, Armenia is very close to losing Artsakh, and I don't think that it's acceptable for any of Armenians who loves the country. But the situation is very hard, and this kind of big changes are affecting small countries a lot normally, and this kind of changes in the times of the crisis between Russian and West. Armenia is also becoming one of the battlefields of this rivalry, which is not that great as some may think. It may bring many more problems to the country, but that's what we have. So I think here I will keep it short, and we can continue with questions later. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Leo. Thank you very much for this insightful comment. So we have some questions here that have come in. Question from Hovannes Mardirosyan, and this is for you, Anna. Can Armenia become a broker between Iran and America to mediate their differences? Can you take a couple of minutes and address that, please?
Thanks for the question. Becoming a broker between Iran and America, I guess it was something Armenia was speaking during the years. Theoretically, yes, but when we assume all the scope of the differences and problems and issues between those countries, I guess that coming back to JCPOA or Iran deal will be a better platform, of course, for US and Iran having a platform for speaking about their differences and having a field where they can cooperate or starting cooperation. But theoretically, yes, if Armenia, as Leo mentioned, will go to the signing of the agreement with Azerbaijan, not in Russia, but in Europe, it will change all the geopolitical situation in the Caucasus and will give some bigger role to Armenia to play, not only in the region, but also beyond the region. But of course, it's something that is ideal plan, but we must acknowledge that not everything happens in ideal way in any time, and especially in these very challenging times we have. But things change indeed very dramatically, and I don't exclude anything and any scenarios that can happen in the future if the stability of the region will be and will become reality. The role of the broker for Armenia will be not something very far from the reality, and especially taking into consideration all the developments I have already mentioned we have in Armenia, and especially in Sunnic region, where all these global powers are very interested to be involved in the region, and we can have many scenarios, but the two extremes of the in this scope of many scenarios, the best one is the platform for cooperation and negotiation for these powers, and another extreme is unfortunate one to become some kind of Syria or northern part of Syria, where these different powers are involved, but not for the cooperation, but for the fighting. And so we must do our best to prevent this scenario and to become a platform for stability and negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Allison, we have two questions now for you. One from Misak Sarkisian, and he says, can the simulation be applied to the past events to evaluate its predictive power or efficiency and find the ways of improving it? So that's the first one. If you can take that on, and then I'll read the second one.
Yes, and thank you for that question. It's a fantastic question, and I also would like to encourage my colleagues here who participated in the simulation to weigh in as well. I'll give you from the sort of methodological perspective. Yes, of course, but because we're dealing with a simulation with people involved as well, even if you're doing a computational simulation, right? It would be even better if you could run it multiple times, right? And sort of get down to test the sensitivity of the process to see, if you predicted the past with a single simulation, that's great. But if you can predict the past with multiple iterations of the same simulation, that gives you some sense of its predictive power, for sure. But, again, because you're dealing with such complex systems and their emergent properties, and, there's a lot happening. But the short answer is yes. The longer answer has a, and it would be even better if you did it multiple times. I don't know if anyone else wants to weigh in on that response.
Let's move on, because we have another question for you, and then we have another one that just come in. So another question for you, for Allison, is from Garo, and he says, in 1991, when Russia pulled away from South Caucasus, Armenia won the war. What should be a strategic plan for Armenia to get ready for the next pullout of Russia? Ooh, maybe you can chime in, and then maybe Leo may want to chime in. So go ahead first, Allison.
Full disclosure, I am not an expert on this area. However, what I would say is, one of the things in coming up with a strategic plan for Armenia is probably to understand or to articulate why you think Russia pulled out in the first case, and whether that actually had anything to do with Armenia winning the war, and what it had to do. But the second thing is to consider in the future why you think Russia might pull out. Is it because Putin is gone? Is it because all eyes are on Ukraine and it's just too much? He needs the troops, that are involved between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Has something else in the Russian interests changed that Armenia can take advantage of? I'll say something now that is absolutely heretical for this particular group. But looking forward to the balance here between Armenia, Russia, Azerbaijan, and the rest of the players in the region, is it the case? Some would argue that a move toward Europe and a move toward technological investment and becoming again sort of the Silicon Valley of the South Caucasus, that would be very good for Armenian economic development. And as we discussed, economic development is very much tied to national security and border integrity and all of that. Does it make sense for Armenia to maybe use Artsakh as a bargaining chip to consolidate its power so that it can really gain, investment while having a sort of a buffer between Russia and Azerbaijan? I don't know. But those kinds of questions are what might flow out of considering, what should Armenia's strategic plan be as, Russia pulls out or other environmental situations change. And I will stop.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I see Anna has her hand raised, but before we go to you, Anna, Leo, do you want to weigh in quickly on this issue?
Yeah, I can add a bit. I think that the fact that Allison is not very much involved in the South Caucasus topics even helped her to answer the question better, maybe. Because I agree that Russia pulling out, that may be opportunity, but that may be a grave challenge and grave threat at the same time. Depends on what Armenia do and how ready Armenia is to such huge changes in the region. And if we look back at 2020, we see that Azerbaijan was ready for some huge changes in the world and used this window of opportunity to start and to win a war. And I think that in this sense, let's say, ball is on Armenia's side, and the only thing which should really bother government today is pushing forward armed forces capacity in both technical and educational directions, and if that path is taken and work is done effectively, then any change and any, let's say, chaotization of region may bring Armenia opportunities rather than threats. But in today's situation, if Russia leaves, let's say tomorrow Russia leaves, it's more a grave danger for Armenia than a chance to win something.
Thank you, Leo.
Anna,
you have your hand raised. You want to go ahead, Anna?
Thank you so much. Of course, Allison and Leo already touched upon the topics I wanted to refer, but just small comments. Speaking about pulling out of Russia in 1991, I wanted to stress that we must differentiate the Soviets pulling out politically, but Russia staying militarily in Armenia. And also, when speaking about today's pulling out of Russia, we have again these two extremes: pulling out of Russia and having no Russia in the region and in Armenia, and having strong Russia in the region and in Armenia. But we have the third way and third scenario also, which will be, I guess, the best one for Armenia, having both Russia and the West, but having the limited leverage on the political aspirations of Armenia and limited leverage on the sovereign decisions of Armenian state. And having this situation when we have a huge influx of Russian people here, using the technologies and also all the connections with the West, maybe we must consider becoming a hub between the West and Russia, taking into account that this Western front will be closed and will be, and South Caucasus will be even more important, having this role of a hub and a bridge between West and Russia. And so I wanted to say that this pulling out of Russia, it's not an action which can be done overnight and which can be done very peacefully and not dramatically for Armenia, but it's also the thing that which is not the only way and possibility to have advantage of this situation, very dramatic, challenging, but still we must consider also this kind of scenarios, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. David, over to you. You have your hand raised, and David,
Yes.
I have a couple of questions that you
Yes.
you will need to address. Go ahead, David.
Sure, a couple of points on the Russia also presence. I was driving about 10 days ago across all the Armenian southern border, which is currently with Azerbaijan, before it was with Artsakh. And at least I counted 15 Russian military posts there. So I don't know the number of Russian. So this is not the Lachin corridor peacekeepers. This is extra Russian force on the border. And I don't know the might and the capacity and the order they have, but for sure they are playing important stabilizing role there. The same way the Russian peacekeepers, although just 2,000 in number, they are still playing important stabilizing role in Artsakh. There was a rumor, which I'm not sure how true it is, but someone told me that the incident in Teh, the position the Azerbaijanis managed to put at the end of Lachin corridor, somehow they managed to bribe. This is again the rumor. The former Russian commander who was dismissed soon after, but they place a post again. I know Leonid, you probably are. I'm not sure, but at least the Russian commander was replaced very soon after this. But and how this is functioning, whether the Russian full vertical command chain working perfectly well or not, that also I don't know. But to me, in Russia, important presence is there. A second point, which I wanted to mention also, I was having a coffee with one of the European Union ambassadors before they went to Cabayan, to Munich. And he raised very naive question. He said, to move 120,000 people from Artsakh to Armenia, how much it would cost? And this is, and for him, it's not United States, where people move from California to Texas like every year, few 100,000, and this is a matter of jobs and buying a new house. It is a bit more complex. And then he said, but yeah, if you have graves there or you have churches, maybe there could be some protection for them. But so it is a very different perception how these issues are taken in Europe or in the United States, and they are taken in our context also. So that's why I think we need to make a bit more work to explain that these things are not that simple, to move the number of people from one place to another.
David, thank you. And we don't have a whole lot of time left, and I think we have two more questions. The first one I'm going to ask you, David, to address. It's obvious, and here it is, it's obvious that the stronger we are internally, especially militarily, the more will our friends and our adversaries respect us? What steps are being taken in that regard? Can you address that quickly?
No, this is totally, this is part of my paper also. There are at least 5 blocks of important steps, and this is what Allison said also. Security is not only the security and military might. It is the diplomacy, it is the quality of our organization, it is the moral support, it is the economic capacity, it is the quality of education, and many other things. What steps are being taken of? I know that there have been some steps taken, like the recent incident, our response were stronger than before. How systematic are those steps? I think we need to, so far I didn't see much or evidence that it has been seriously taken care of. For me, it is reorganization, reforms of our armed forces, which have been built following the Soviet model. And there are some discussions, and we had with Leonid also a number of sessions about this, but I don't see much happening on the ground in real terms. And I've been in many military posts around Armenia also. So reserve system, territorial defense, defense industry, and many other things. On top of this, I think our diplomacy, and this is an extra point, I think we failed miserably in our diplomacy also. During the 44 days war, there was no single country willing to support us. Even no single country suggested to UN Security Council that there's a big war, the biggest in that year, in 2020. And then there should be some special effort by Security Council. Only 2 years after, when it came to blockade, Lachin corridor, etc., the issue was raised to UN Security Council, International Court of Justice, and few other bodies where Security Council did not make any decision, but at least 15 different countries came with opinion, mostly supporting the people in Artsakh on blockade-related issues. But diplomacy, our diplomacy need to be much more stronger, proactive, and engaging many friends instead of like playing this like Western Russia, this triangle, which is not very helpful. I think we need to expand the scope of our friends, and of course the economic development. At the one point also I mentioned in my paper also, this unexpected benefit that came to Armenia because of Russian war in Ukraine. We got 100,000 highly qualified people working in Armenia, and GDP of Armenia growth was the highest in the last 30 years, 12.7% in 1 year, and $6 billion came into Armenia. Some of them transited through Armenia, but some of them stayed in Armenia also. So, and this is continuing this year also. So one of the ideas was that Armenia could become, and this is part of the solution, but not the only, that Armenia could attract more talent from Russia, from Ukraine, from Iran eventually, and some other places also, to diversify and bring some highly qualified people and to accommodate them as a part of our, let's say, future Armenian nation, the same way Israel did. Like when the Soviet Union collapsed, they managed to get 900,000 Jews and Israel transformed from agricultural country to high-tech country. And this is interesting opportunity, and we're trying to advocate this approach. And I think it has a merit to be considered further. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tavir. I think we're very close to running out of. In fact, we're over our allocated time. There are more questions, but hopefully, Hagop, you could forward those to the SMEs, and they can reply to those who are asking them. We have no time, but we have just a few more minutes. If you can each take a minute right now. Let's start off with you, Allison. A minute closing remarks. Quickly, anything you want to say?
I want to first thank everybody for their very kind questions and very, very kind comments in the chat. And this is such an important topic. I just really want to thank everybody involved for allowing me to be involved and listen and to learn from you. I don't have anything else, Hriar.
Okay, well, thank you. Anna, any closing remarks?
I just wanted to thank you for all this very important experience. Both theoretical part and simulation game was very important experience for me personally. And also this panel was very interesting, and thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. Leo, closing remarks?
I also want to thank everybody for organizing this event and the simulation, and hopefully this process will continue. And I think that all the diaspora people, let's say, should try to be more involved in things going on in Armenia. I see that this process is going on, but we should push more. And I think that the future of Armenia is also very much connected to how much diaspora is involved and how much diaspora is repatriating to Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. We have a couple of questions. So as I said, Arpine, if you could coordinate with Hagop, and we get these questions and then send them to the SMEs, and hopefully they can respond. There are two we haven't gotten to. We're running out of time. So Arpine, any closing remarks from your end?
Thank you so much. Thank you for this panel discussion, and please feel free to contact us for any questions you may have about the course, and we will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Arpine. Thank you for all the subject matter experts who have participated. And Hagop, thank you. And over to you, Hagop, for any closing remarks you want to make.
Thank you very much, Hriar, and thank you, panelists. This was an excellent discussion, actually, very informative and very high level. And I think everybody agrees that this is very, very important. And I would, again, recommend that each and every one of you read that report and also try to maybe participate in the course. So if anybody would like to participate, you can send me an email, ARPA email, info@arpainstitute.org, and we can organize working with maybe Yervant and Hriar and Arpine and organize such an event. Yervant, would you like to say have any comments?
Just to thank ARPA for the opportunity. This is a process. Forward-looking, planning ahead, scenario-based planning is something that we all have to do. Taking advantage of this course is important. As you mentioned, Hagop, if you'd like to join us as an ARPA group, as a cohort from ARPA, we would like to offer the course as a group, and you can do the analysis with like-minded people of ARPA together if you wanted to. You'll be more than welcome.
Thank you very much. And I hope you will join us on the genetics panel discussion. And I would appreciate, of course, any donations to ARPA, because we need a lot of funds in our clean room right now. We are sending 3 major devices to the clean room: a furnace, a wet bench, and an aligner, which these are very expensive instrumentation. And we still need to purchase a glove box and many other instruments so that we have a full capacity clean room in Armenia. So please donate and help us achieve our goal. Thank you very much again, panelists and Hriar and Yervant and Arpine and everybody.
Yeah. Hey, Hagop, thank you. Just closing remarks. This is being recorded. You can ask Hagop or Arpine or me, even we can send that to you. And please distribute it around those who couldn't, on a Saturday morning couldn't log on. So thank you also.
Yes, you will receive actually the link to the YouTube recording, so everybody will receive it and we'll be able to watch the event completely.
Well, happy Memorial Day weekend for everybody.
Yes, happy Memorial Day, and thank you very much again, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you.